Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I'm gonna share with you some of my league start strategies. I'm gonna share with you my personal plan, what I'm gonna be doing at the league start, and we're gonna talk about some strong builds that I think are worth checking out, potential starter builds, and potential strategies that you can use to make a lot of currency in the early stages of the league. Hopefully this will inspire you to figure out what you wanna do, match the right build to the right strategy, and let's get started with what I'm gonna do personally, because I'm gonna be playing Toxic Rain Raider. My plan originally was to do Endless Heist, but unfortunately Endless Heist is pretty much removed from the game now. But I'm still gonna be doing Heist, except it's just going to be between levels 60 and 67. So I'm gonna be still running through Heist, making currency. We're gonna make like 100 to 200 chaos. We'll see how much depends on the drops, but it's gonna be very solid way of making early currency, buying the early uniques that I need to make my character a little bit stronger, and then I'm gonna make some short-term investments which are hidden here because I don't want to share these investments with everybody, because if I do share them then they're not gonna be investments that are possible anymore. So that's one of the things that I basically hid here, so that not everybody tries to buy the same niche items that are gonna be like my specific investments, but everything else I'm gonna share with you guys, so don't worry about that. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a rogue logbooks to craft items for profit. This can be done very quickly after entering maps. So I'm basically gonna enter maps, do a few maps, focus on betrayal because I wanna get some reveals for some unveils for the crafting bench. And then I'm gonna run logbooks. Logbooks can be just basically chained. You can level through the logbooks and you can make a lot of currency through that. You don't need to progress your atlas to do it. And then from that point on, I'm gonna invest a little bit into the character, and I have a couple of options. I can either progress through the atlas very quickly because it's gonna be day 2, day 3, however long I'm gonna stay in the logbooks, and I'm basically going to be able to get the maps much cheaper. I'm gonna be able to progress through them much quicker and easier because I'm already gonna have higher level and better gear, and then I can farm something like Twist of Fate Val Temples, which is a strategy from last league that I really enjoyed, and it's pretty good at the league start because you get a lot of time to sell all of these weird items that you're getting from this. Or I can farm Heist, and I can even do that by completely skipping the Atlas progression. I could simply run the logbooks and then from logbooks level up and then start buying contracts and blueprints and rogue markers and run Heist and never step my foot into the Atlas basically, except for like doing a couple maps at the beginning. So that's basically two options that I have, and it will depend on how strong my character feels, what are the prices of contracts, and so on. However, farming my own Heist contracts while doing some maps in between is my preferred way of doing this, so that's probably what I will be doing. I'll just progress Atlas very quickly, like 1 or 2 days later basically, and skip the struggle phase. Instead of struggling, I'll be basically making currency. That's how I prefer to do it. That's maybe not a conventional way to start the league, but I think it's much more enjoyable for me. And the build that I'm gonna be playing personally is gonna be Toxic Rain Raider, and as you can see, Toxic Rain Raider is pretty much the best choice for this because I want to do Heist, I want to do Val Temples, and I also want to be doing logbooks, and in all of these things Toxic Rain and Raider are excellent, especially being Raider and having the onslaught up all the time and having the phasing up all the time helps a lot while you're running and like clicking on the remnants and planting explosives. In all logbooks you have the permanent movement speed uptime, same with Heist, and it's really good. So let's talk about starter builds and what I would recommend. So first of all, RF is gonna be pretty popular still. You can play Juggernaut, Inquisitor, or you can also play Elementalist. In my personal opinion, Elementalist is the best for softcore because of the AoE. It's very valuable. You get also tons of single target damage, easy source of single target damage through the extra exposure, and the node that gives you either AoE or more elemental damage against unique enemies. So I personally prefer the Elementalist because it seems to have like the best clear for softcore, but the Juggernaut and the Inquisitor are very viable, and there's tons of resources from POEs about them. So that's definitely a very good league starter. Another good league starter is Bone Shatter Slayer or Jug. Karn recently released a great guide for that, so you can check that out if you want to play Bone Shatter. Cold Elementalist is also very good for progressing very quickly. If you want to quickly go and do some bosses and never struggle but also never be too fast, Cold is like a very solid and consistent build that you can also play. CF Champion is very, very strong league starter for certain strategies. So if you want to do things like Expedition, if you want to do things like Legion, where you need a lot of clear power, but not necessarily bossing power, this is a very, very good build for that. Especially if you want to do like expeditions in mapping, like you can combine expeditions with Legion, with Harvest, something like that, have a league strategy like that, and the CF Champ will be very, very good for that. Next we got Impending Doom. Impending Doom hasn't been nerfed for some reason. It's extremely powerful. It's very strong on occultives, on Pathfinder. It does require Vixens though, which might be pretty expensive, so that might be a barrier to entry, and you have to have a plan of how to start this. Potentially you can start with some chaos skills, you can start with Toxic Rain, we can start with Poisonous Concoction, and then transition into the Impending Doom. Then we have Absolution. Absolution is very strong. Getting the Val skill right now is also a strong buff to the archetype. It's very good to start. If you even want to play another minion build, Absolution is a very, very good starter. Then we've got Armageddon Brand. You can play this in many different ways. You can play the version that Jangron recently released a guide for, where you basically summon all of the brands around yourself and they slam the target. So you can play with the brand recall version, or you can just play with the regular version. I have some guides for that as well, so you can check them out. It's a very comfortable and a nice league starter to play. It's a pretty quick build and can basically do all content. And then we've got Venom Gyre. Venom Gyre is something that is very, very fast. It's great for mapping. It's also decent for bossing later on if you invest into the build, but it does require some gear. So you need to understand how to upgrade your gear and how to progress your character in terms of like upgrading the gear on the character, because it is gear reliant, but the benefit of that is that it's also scaling with the gear very, very well, and it can be transitioned into bow builds, which there's going to be lots of very popular bow builds that people are going to be basically starting with Venom Gyre Deadeye and then transitioning into a bow build. Then we've got also traps. There's tons of trap builds that you can play. You can play Ice Trap, you can play still Explosive Trap, but it's not that good early on. You can also play Seismic Trap, is still very good. Ice Trap particularly is going to be very, very good for bossing. Like the fact that Heat Shiver hasn't been nerfed is insane to me. Heat Shiver builds are still going to be some of the highest damage builds in the game, so definitely look out for that item. And if you can, like, for example, I don't know, if you're running Lab and enchanting something, if you have a Heat Shiver, if you hit a good enchant on that, you can just make so much currency. So Heat Shiver being not nerfed is insane, and definitely builds like that do a lot of cold damage and benefit from just the extra fire damage are going to be very, very strong. Then we also have Animate Weapon. Animate Weapon is one of those builds that a lot of people don't like it because of the clunkiness. You have to resummon the weapons, and that's a big drawback. However, the benefit is that you get insane damage, and especially for bossing with the Val version now, you're going to be able to melt bosses with Animate Weapons, and usually you want to play it with some extras. So you don't want to play it like just Animate Weapon, you want to play it with some extra archetype. You can play this with, for example, Skeletons. You can play this with the Arcalis Spiders. So there are many different options to do this. You can play this with SRS as well, like a poison version of Animate Weapon plus SRS. You can combine those things, especially for like the poison build, which benefits a lot from having a lot of minions out. The more minions you have, the better. Then we have Poison Pathfinder. There's tons of different Pathfinder builds that are going to be viable. Pathfinder has received a pretty significant buff. It's going to be a very comfy and tanky build to play. That's gonna basically have like very good quality of life. You're gonna be fast, you're gonna be tanky, and you're gonna have a very decent damage. So Poison Pathfinder of various different kinds. You can play this with bow skills, you can play this with melee skills, you can play this with like lightning strike, like things like that. This is going to be a very, very popular ascendancy this league for sure. So if you are enjoying Pathfinder, if you're enjoying poison builds, this is definitely a happy league for you, because there's going to be tons of that. Then we've got DD Ignite Elementalist. This is something that is very, very powerful, especially if you're playing hardcore, or if you're playing solo self-found, or if you're trying to push to kill the bosses quickly and you're trying to push a higher level content very early. This is a very, very powerful build that doesn't require a lot to scale, so you can focus on your defenses and still have very good baseline clear and a baseline single target damage. You can check out a guide from I'm Exile, who released this recently on YouTube, where he basically basically can teach you everything you need to know about this build. He's been playing this for a long time and figuring out how to best approach playing this character, so I definitely recommend that. And then we've got TR. If you don't know which ascendancy to play, I'll just say play Pathfinder. I personally am not gonna play Pathfinder because I don't really care about single target damage. I'm not gonna be doing bossing, and I don't really care about tankiness beyond what I need to survive Heist and Val Temples, and I'm gonna have that. So I don't care about anything else, and that's why I'm gonna be playing Raider, because I want to be as fast as possible for all of those mechanics that I'm gonna be doing. But I think Pathfinder is overall the better build. It's more well-rounded. It has a better balance of the damage. It has definitely better single target damage because of the automatic targeting and just ballistas shooting while you run around, for example, if you're playing the ballista version. So if you want to be doing some bosses and you want to be comfy while doing the bosses, then I definitely recommend the ballista version of the Toxic Rain Pathfinder. You can check out Palstrone's guide for that. And then we've got the potential strats. So the potential strats that I would recommend, I'm gonna basically give you some suggestions that I think is going to be very good to make currency early. So one of those things is going to be Expedition. We've got Expedition on the map device. You can see on the map device, we're gonna have the Fortune Favors the Brave, Abyss for 2 KOs, which is going to be pretty good if it's as rewarding as they said. Then we've got Essence, so everybody and their mother is gonna be running Essence in the beginning, Ambush, Metamorph, Heist, Expedition, and Harvest. Although when you're running Expedition, I really don't recommend using the map device version. The only good thing about this being on map device is that whenever people are using Fortune Favors the Brave, they can hit the Expedition for 3 chaos, so that's really good. It's gonna increase the number of logbooks available in the league, and I'm happy for that. But if you wanna farm Expedition in your maps, then 100% use a Scarab. The Scarab will give you extra runic monsters, and that's what you need if you want to drop logbooks and extra currency. So definitely use the Scarab, farm Expedition. There's tons of strategies with that, which I'm going to also mention in a moment. And then another variation of that is to just farm logbooks. You can start very early with like low level 70s logbooks that people find. You can just snipe them from trade for pretty cheap. You can start farming that and then go into higher level logbooks, and you can do basically any logbooks you want that you can focus on. I guess Gwenan is not worth, but every other logbook is pretty good. So I would definitely recommend logbooks as a very viable strategy as well, especially early on. And then we've got low-level maps for essences. So this is something that people have been running forever. Anytime there is map device, all you need to do is basically you clear the content up until, I guess, like tier 8 maps. I think somewhere around there. When you're at like tier 8, tier 9 maps, you're gonna have enough passive skill points to get all of the map nodes and all of the essence nodes. And then you basically can go back down to white maps or whatever maps you can clear very, very quickly and just farm essences. Tons of people are gonna be doing this. There's gonna be so many essences being farmed that later on flipping them will be also very good, but not at the beginning, because at the beginning people are not really gonna be buying them in bulk. It's gonna be after a few days where people start crafting with essences and they're gonna need a lot of them. But at the beginning, everybody's gonna be basically farming them. So I think this is gonna be so saturated that it's actually not very good to do. If you don't know what to do and you're fine with doing essences, it's gonna be a fine strategy. You are going to make currency, but it's not gonna be the best currency strategy at all. And then we've got Rogue Exiles Chaos Recipe. So Chaos Recipe is something that you definitely should do in the first day when you get to maps, when you just need to fund your character and get some first uniques and first decent rares on your character. I definitely recommend doing Chaos Recipe. And to do that, you need to basically get a source of jewelry. There is so many different ways of doing this. One of those ways is getting the Rakas modifier, which gives your maps 8% chance to contain 20 additional Rogue Exiles, and these Rogue Exiles drop a full set of gear, so every single slot of gear, and that's gonna give you a bunch of rings and amulets when that happens. So that's why this node is pretty powerful early on. If you can handle the Rogue Exiles, you're gonna get a lot more jewelry and you're gonna get a lot more Chaos Recipe. So that's gonna help you with that. Then Essence Memories are also going to be very, very powerful. If your character can clear them, doing Essence Memories is basically a nice and quick way of just getting tons of money from the essences. You can sell them in bulk. This is going to be, of course, a very strong, just as in the previous leagues. Then we've got also a note here about like pneumatic daggers being viable, because probably people are going to be playing something like there's going to be a bunch of self-chill, self-poison Andes who are going to be playing that build. There is potentially a crazy build that I made a video about that is going to definitely involve self-chill and self-poison. So for that reason, people are going to be wanting things like pneumatic daggers so that they can poison with all damage. People are going to be playing things like what's that skill called again? Spectral throw, right? People are going to be trying to make like spectral throw, self-chill, self-poison work, and for that they need the pneumatic dagger so that they can poison with elemental damage as well. So that's why Heist in general is going to be very, very, very profitable. Heist, at first you can focus on the contracts, and for the blueprints you can run the replicas and trinkets, and then after week 1 you can run the gems, because the price of gems is basically going to be pretty low at the beginning. People really don't want to purchase all of the alternate quality gems early on, but later on, when the demand increases, the gems skyrocket in price, so later on you can farm these gems as well. Heist is going to be very strong. It's one of the few places where you can actually drop raw divines and you can actually like target farm divines, right? So because it's one of the best places for farming raw divines, like that are in the game pretty much, and because it gives you so many things that people don't want to farm but they don't want to use them, it's going to be very, very profitable, and that's why it's going to be one of my main focuses, and like it's going to be my main focus in this league, to basically farm Heist, and that's why I'm playing Raider. Then we got Blight. Blight is going to be also a very valuable strategy. You can do Chaos Recipe early on because you have tons of chests that give you jewelry, which is going to accelerate your Chaos Recipe, and then you can rush to higher levels because you don't need a lot of gear. You can get carried by the towers. That's why you can do high level content very early, and by being one of the first people to the higher level content, you have access to the higher level bases, and the bases are going to be very important for the league mechanic. If you've read about the league mechanic, you're gonna know that the item level is important when it comes to getting the right Crucible tree, right? The certain Crucible nodes are gated behind certain item level. So if you're trying to, for example, unveil bows, if you're trying to unveil some other weapons like claws or something like that, or shields, the higher item level, the better. My guess is that it's gonna cap at 83 or 84 or something like that, but it definitely high item level is going to be important. So getting access to high item level bases through whatever means is going to be something that's very valuable. Next we got altar farming, efficient atlas tree plus league mechanics. So this is like the generic cookie cutter thing that you can do, and this is what I recommend if you just don't know what you're doing, you like mapping, you want to learn about the league mechanic, you want to explore the league mechanic and just have regular mapping. Focus on the altars and focus on efficient atlas tree. What does efficient atlas tree mean? This means you don't want to, even though you have these like things available, Eldritch Gateway and so on, you want to make sure that you're packing things that are synergistic with each other, right? So for example, I'm going to give you some extra examples of synergy here. So one of those is, let's see, Essence plus Heist plus Betrayal, okay? So if you're doing Essence plus Heist plus Betrayal, you can rush the league mechanic, right? This is one of the rushing strategies. I had a video about this last league, and it's going to be exactly the same this league. Essences take very, very little time, and they scale per map, okay? So you don't want to run long, big, juicy maps. You want to run as quick map as possible. The map can even be white. Just don't even alk it. The map can be white. Heist, same thing. The map can be white because those rewards are independent on the rolls on the map. They are not affected by pack size, quantity, or anything else. So Essences and Heist work like that. Same with Betrayal, right? So those three league mechanics are perfect for very, very quickly rushing through the map, getting the league mechanic, the Crucible, just leveling your weapon trees and things like that, focusing on that. And while you're doing it, you're focusing on these three mechanics, you're doing them very, very quickly, you're getting tons of returns, and you're just spamming as many white maps as possible. And by white, I don't mean the tier. You can do T16 maps, or you can do whatever maps you want, but just not rolled maps at all, which is going to be very, very simple content, very, very easy, and you're actually going to level very quickly because you're not going to be dying at all. Another option for very synergistic Atlas skill tree is something like pack size, harvest plus expedition plus one. Plus one means basically one other league mechanic. Could be Legion, could be something else, something that scales with pack size. So you want to use something like growing hordes, for example, and then you can use harvest, expedition, and then something else that scales with pack size, preferably something that is in this area, because that's where on the right side you will find all of these expedition and harvest nodes. Could be something like Harbingers, for example, right? Whatever third league mechanic, focus on these 3 league mechanics, get as many passive points into the things that benefit them as possible, block all of the other league mechanics, and then you're gonna have basically free access to them. Like every single mechanic, like every other or every third map is gonna be available to you for free, and that's how you can get a lot of currency by basically running very low investment maps that very efficiently use the Atlas skill tree and give you a lot of currency because of that. So that's another thing that I recommend. And then we also have league mechanic plus boss rushing. This is something that's good with the essence heist and betrayal that I talked about before. Basically, if you want to make currency from the league mechanic, I'm sure there's going to be like big demand for specific trees, or if you're targeting a specific tree for yourself, you can also level something else, right? If you have like different weapons that you want to level, like you just want to spam a lot of maps and you just want to get through a lot of league mechanics, so boss rushing for that is going to be very good. Boss rushing basically means that you're killing the boss, you have one of those things allocated, like etched by acid or baptized by fire, where your maps get extra chance to get double progress toward the Searing Exarch, and then you sell the invitations because you're running the maps very, very quickly. What else do we have here? Beasts. Okay, beasts are going to be very expensive this league. Split beasts especially are going to be extremely expensive. Imprints are going to be very expensive. People are going to be using them to manipulate the Crucible trees. So beast memories and beast farming in general is going to be very profitable as well. This is something that you should learn about, like which beasts are valuable, so that you kill the valuable beasts. But the good thing is that this league, they also added like a quality of life feature where you can just free the beasts from your menagerie, so you don't have to just spend currency like for buying the bestiary orbs and then trapping the beasts into the bestiary orbs and then selling them or deleting them or vendoring them. You can just release the beasts very quickly, so you can empty your menagerie from the shitty beasts and you can just have the space for the good beasts so you can farm quicker. So beast farming is going to be much more profitable than before, even because we're getting the extra QOL and we're getting a very big incentive to use beasts because they're going to be very, very, very powerful. And then we also have things like Abyss plus Essences. So this is one of those things that synergizes together. By farming Abyss, you're going to be getting Stygian Vices, for example. And by farming Essences, you're going to have tons of different Essences that you don't necessarily want to use on anything. You don't really want to sell them in bulk. They're very, very cheap. They're not very valuable, but buying them would be annoying because you have to trade. So you're going to get access to those Essences and the Stygian Vices. You can craft Stygians and sell them. This is very, very good money. I definitely recommend that if you just don't know how to make currency and you want to learn a little bit about crafting and you want to get like an entry-level crafting Stygian Vices is something that you can always do at the beginning of the league, and they are pretty valuable. So that's basically it. Those are my suggestions for potential strategies at the league start that you can do and potential league starter builds. Hopefully this is going to help you figure out what you want to do, and pretty much all content creators recommend league starter builds the same way that I'm going to recommend them to you now, which is play whatever you find enjoyable, play whatever fits your playstyle. If you hate totems, do not play a totem build. If you hate traps, do not play a trap build. Just play whatever you find enjoyable, and then also try to match the build to whatever strategy you want to do, right? So if you're trying to do something like, I don't know, if you're trying to farm like pack size harvest plus expedition plus something else, like you can play something like CF champion, for example, right? For something like that, or some kind of a bow build, something with good clear, right? So definitely if you like wanna farm essence memories, play something with good single target damage, right? So match the build to the strategy and your playstyle, and that way you're gonna have basically the best time at the league start. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good league start and see you next time.